What's up, branding experts? Arek here at eBay Design, and in this video I'm going to share with you the tone of voice of famous brands, and then we're gonna talk about how to define a tone of voice for your or your client's brand and set the guidelines for how you want your brand to sound to others so that you can shape the way your brand is perceived in the marketplace, and your audience will be able to connect with your brand as if it was a real human being. Now, if you're new to this channel and you want actionable tips on branding, strategy and design, well then smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell as well. My name is Arek Dworniczak, and at eBay Design my mission is to help people design iconic brands. Okay, so before we talk about the tone of voice of famous brands, let's quickly define what brand voice actually is and why it's important for branding a business. So what is a brand's tone of voice? So a tone of voice is a consistent way of conveying your brand message to your audience. So it's basically the personality of your brand that comes through the words that you use in communication, so that the brand voice is essentially an extension of your brand personality, so that your brand personality and voice will work together to represent the how your message is delivered. And the tone of voice should be used consistently across all channels of communication to allow the audience to familiarize themselves with your brand as if they were talking to a real human being. And your tone is not only about how you speak, but also the words that you choose to use and how you use them. The cadence, the rhythm, the velocity, the length of your speech, and so on. So for example, do you speak fast or with a drawl? Are you loud and bombastic or quiet and reserved? Do you speak in long ornate sentences? Do you use industry jargon or plain English? Are you cashing in all your 50-cent words, or you just try to keep it simple? So many brands call tone of voice as communication best practices, because the way a brand looks is just as important as the way it sounds. So besides designing your visual identity, it's also important to define your brand voice. And this all comes down to defining a definitive style for writing and speaking. But first, let's look at some of the examples of famous brands, and then I will give you my step-by-step process to developing a tone of voice for your or your client's brand. So stick around. Okay, so without further ado, let's just jump right into the first example on my list, which is Starbucks. And Starbucks has a clear and concise brand guidelines available online, with a section dedicated to its tone of voice. So the Starbucks' tone of voice is primarily functional and expressive, and Starbucks' tone of voice guidelines consist of many examples of how to use this voice to design different applications. So the functional tone is used primarily for wayfinding and ordering, with a goal to keep the copy clear for maximum legibility, while the expressive tone is where the Starbucks' brand personality really comes to life. So the expressive voice is used to tell a passionate coffee story wherever is possible. So using both functional and expressive voice allows the brand to create more space for relevance, connection, and joy. And sometimes the copy will just make you smile, and other times it will clearly navigate you in purchasing experience. So now the second example on my list is Uber, and the Uber's voice guidelines provide a set of core elements to define quality writing across all touchpoints. And the Uber's brand voice is considerate, simple, bold, and consistent. And their guidelines show you a bunch of specific and detailed examples of how to write copy. So the Uber's voice expresses the brand's essence, signaling what the brand is and what it stands for. Now, considerate voice means that the writing should be audience first, and simple and direct voice, this refers to writing in a straightforward and easy to understand way. And consistent voice, it obviously tries to unite the experience across all departments, countries and languages, so that they can all together create that feeling, it sounds like Uber, despite all the cultural differences and so on. So the Uber's voice guideline is much more comprehensive than Starbucks's is, and you will also find supporting tone of voice together with additional tools and even editing tips. So I recommend you to check it out. It's a great resource for your inspiration. Now the third example on my list is MailChimp. And MailChimp speaks to its customers in a tone that is usually informal, but not inappropriate and never snobbish. So the MailChimp's brand voice is clear, genuine, and with a bit of dry humor. And their tone of voice guidelines brilliantly explain how to use that offbeat humor and a conversational voice to write empowering content. And clear means that MailChimp strips away all that jargon, hyperbolic language to value clarity above all. So the genuine voice they chose to use helps them to relate to small businesses and their challenges by speaking to them in a familiar, warm, and accessible way. And also their style guide clearly states that if you want to make a joke, forced humor can be worse than none at all. So if you are unsure, it's better to keep a straight face. So in their style guide, you will also find helpful tips and key elements for how to actually use that tone of voice in communication. Now, the next and fourth example on my list is Harley Davidson. And Harley Davidson is a perfect example of how a more aggressive tone can be used for the right brand. So the Harley's voice is strong, confident, and aggressive. And some brands try to speak in a pleasant and cheerful way with a playful and fun voice, but Harley is definitely not one of them. So their voice challenges the reader to show that they are actually worthy of handling one of their motorcycles. So as the brand clearly adapts the outlaw archetype, therefore their personality is rough and rugged, so is their tone of voice. So they show that personality through a unique and differentiated voice that connects to their target audience. So this type of voice resonates well with rebellious, bold, fiercely independent customers or wannabe. So everything about their marketing evokes confidence, freedom, patriotism, and masculinity. Just look at their website and the headlines they use. Okay, so the next on my list is Coca-Cola. And Coca-Cola is one of my favorite examples when it comes to consistent brand voice. Now, the Coca-Cola's brand voice is positive, friendly, and down to earth. And they're always showing us concepts of what a happy life looks like, accompanied by a positive, optimistic voice, of course. So they've been on the market for over 130 years, but their voice remains consistent with a single purpose: to evoke happiness. So you can see polar bears, families getting together to have a dinner and a Coke, of course, or friends dancing and smiling. In every marketing campaign, you will see this concept of happy life. So Coca-Cola brilliantly connects positive feelings with their drink through evocative images and perfectly constructed tone of voice. Now let's look at Old Spice as an example. And Old Spice had long been the leader in men's deodorant, but when Axe entered the market, the brand began to lose share and was forced to rebrand. So now the new Old Spice voice is humorous and masculine, and the New York agency Lander Associates established Old Spice's unique voice to inspire new ways to engage with consumers. So the Old Spice brand, similarly to Coca-Cola, is an older brand that was on the market for over 90 years. However, unlike Coca-Cola, the brand wasn't good at branding, as people started to associating it with old people smell. So that's why the company had to undergo a total rebrand in 2010, which included, of course, changing the tone of voice. So they began using plenty of humor in their advertisements and on social media, which proved to be very successful. So Old Spice now uses a consistent tone of voice with a bit of witty humor that helps the brand to redefine masculinity and dominate that deodorant aisle. And lastly, we have Tiffany as an example on my list. And Tiffany is not just about the shade of baby blue, but it's also about their well-defined brand personality and brand voice, of course. So the Tiffany's tone of voice is witty, elegant, and classic. Now, the content and social teams work together for voice consistency between social posts and branded content. Historically, Tiffany's voice as a brand was witty, and Twitter allows us to bring that back, said Hong, who leads the team of art directors and copywriters. So Tiffany also has a strong brand voice and is big on social media and marketing. After all, people are willing to pay much more for a Tiffany product than some equivalent without a Tiffany logo. So they pay for the logo, the design, and the small blue box that holds the jewelry, but it wouldn't be possible to sell those often overpriced products without proper tone of voice and messaging. So in every single communication, the Tiffany's brand brand voice is very elegant and classic, and the brand became iconic in big part thanks to consistent branding with the tone of voice that resonates well with their customers. Okay, so this was the last example on my list, so I gave you 7 examples of top brands and their tone of voice so that we can all relate to. And now let's sum it all up. So your brand voice is a set of guidelines on how to use words and communication. So think of your brand voice acting as a filter for the words that you want to use to write copy for your marketing materials. And your tone of voice will stem from your brand personality and your core values. And many successful businesses dedicate a special section in their guidelines to the tone of voice in order to make sure that the brand communicates in a consistent way. Now, how do you define a tone of voice? So first you should look at your target audience and think about the tone of voice that you could use so that it feels familiar to them, so that your brand will come off as someone they would get along with. And secondly, your voice should support your personality, so that if your personality is sophisticated, then your voice should complement that personality. Are you trying to be humorous, or is the subject approached in a more serious way? Are you formal and keep it professional at all costs, or more informal and casual? Do you approach the subject in a respectful way, or do you take a more sassy approach? Do you seem to be enthusiastic and excited about the offer, or is the tone of voice more dry and matter of fact? Now, there are many attributes that you can use to describe the desired tone of voice, and therefore there are many different ways that you can go about defining your brand's voice. That's why I've developed a branding exercise that you can run with your or your client's team to be able to capture a brand's voice with ease and do so fast and accurately. So check out the 7th exercise of my brand strategy guide. Find the link in the description where you can download the worksheets and follow my step-by-step process, so that you will be able to project a compelling voice for your brand. And my guide is very practical, so hopefully you will be able to run this exercise smoothly. But in case you have any questions, just leave a comment below and I will do my best to answer all of those. Or perhaps you already have an idea of what voice can potentially work well for your brand. So what's your voice? Is it funny or serious? Casual or formal? Leave a comment below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel for more tips on branding, strategy and design. This was Arek Dvorniczak from eBay Design, and I will see you in the next one.